Hey, third grade. Today you are going to get back your mineral that you drew last time. Hopefully you finished drawing it. If you haven't, you're going to need to get that done first. And today we are going to be using our watercolors to paint in our gems or minerals, whatever you drew. Now when I paint today, I really want to think about the colors that I'm going to use before I start. I probably want to use 3 colors that are next to each other in a row because that's going to make those transitions in colors look more natural. Like if I use red and yellow and purple, it might not look quite right because those colors don't really have a whole lot in common. So if I use like red, orange, yellow, those would work well. I probably wouldn't use orange, yellow, or green just because green is so different than orange. But I could use probably some yellows and greens and blues, green, blue, and purple. I could even do blue, purple, and then start that rainbow over back to red. Okay, so I would probably recommend one of those sets of colors. Really, the only one that I didn't say was orange, yellow, and green. I also wouldn't use any black or any brown. Okay, let's just stick to our colors. Okay, so today we have 3 different watercolor techniques that I'm going to show you. The first one is just pretty straightforward. Actually, I should probably pick out my colors too. I think I'm going to do blue, purple, and red. First one's pretty straightforward. I'm going to get my brush wet. Give it just a nice little rub on my paints. Doesn't take a whole lot. And I'm painting. So the first one is just simply painting a section. Doing my best to stay in the lines. A lot of times when I paint, what I'll do is I'll actually like outline the section first. Like this. And then I'll come in and I'll fill in the inside of that section. And that just kind of gives me a little bit of buffer room. Okay, so that's one method. It's just painting it all one solid color. I think they call that wet on dry. Another thing that we could do is called blending. So maybe I'll take some purple. And notice too when I paint, I'm going to paint a section that's not right next to this blue because if I have a lot of water on my paper, a lot of times those 2 sections will suck together and they'll start to mix where I don't want them to. So maybe I'll come down here. Maybe I'll do some purple. Using the toes of my brush. A lot of times I think of my paintbrush as a ballerina. So it stands up nice and tall and it just dances on its toes. So just the hair should be touching. So I start with some purple. I'm going to do some blending. So I could take maybe some red this time. So I did just part of it purple. Maybe I'll do some red and I'll come from the other direction. And I can kind of blend those together a little bit. So we get this nice gradient is what they call that, where it transitions from one color, they mix a little bit into another color. So red into this reddish violet into violet. Okay, so that's another method. The final method that you could do, so I did blending, I did wet on dry. The last one is wet on wet. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to brush some water on my section. You're going to want it to be nice and wet. So you might have to brush it a couple times if your paper is soaking it in. Hopefully this will work on this paper. So brushing it in. Now we can take a little bit of color. And I'm just going to touch it. Look what happened. Okay, all I did was just tap it. Okay, I could take a little bit more of a different color. And it makes kind of this cool effect. Get up in those corners a little bit. I'll add a touch more purple. Okay, so this is a really great way to kind of make some neat effects too. So your goal today is to try and get all of that painted. Okay, I am going to give you guys one more day to work on this next week. Next week, I'm hoping they'll be done painted, and then we're also going to cut these out and put them onto a black sheet of paper just to give them kind of a nice clean background. Do another wet on wet right here. Maybe I'll do some blue and some red this time. Remember, if you're doing the wet on wet like I'm doing right now, don't overdo it. It's just a couple little taps of a brush. Okay, I'm not like mixing them together with my brush. I'm just kind of giving them some little taps. Okay, so work on filling up that painting. Okay, can't wait to see them. Obviously, I've got a lot more to do, but can't wait. All right, take care, guys.